All right, here they come. Can you hear me all right? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. Can you hear me? Yeah. Through the microphone? Okay, awesome. Well, we're just getting all started here, and we just have such a wonderful panel tonight. My name is Lori Hammel, as you know, and I am so happy that you're all here. I think we're just going to get some information tonight and insights that are going to really help for next steps. Like, what are the kinds of things that you've always wondered that work and things that don't work? And so what I'm hoping for tonight is that everyone walks away, and those at home that are viewing, walks away with an insight and at least one thing that can make you think, wow, if I did that or I saw this differently, that would really help on my trajectory. So we have such a wonderful panel tonight of, well, people that come to us for these kind of SAG Foundation events that bring their expertise to us in a way that where else would we see this? I mean, and especially to have them all together. So let's start on the end. And if you just introduce yourself before we get started.
Hi, I'm Paul Schnee. I'm a freelance casting director. Is that good enough?
Oh, it's fantastic. Gabby?
I'm Gabby Kachman. I'm a talent agent at Gersh.
I'm Carol Nadell, and I'm formerly of selective casting, and now I'm trying to make the world even better.
I'm Jenna Winnett, and I'm an agent at Bowles Winnett and Associates.
What a panel. Yes. All right. So let's get started because we have a lot to cover. I would just like to find out, I know I asked you this earlier to think about it. What do you wish that actors knew about the business or understood about the business that we might not see?
Whenever you go in for a meeting or an audition, they, for the most part, want you to be the answer to their problem. We want you to be the person that walks into our office that we have gotten a talent crush on, that we want to, make your career happen. We want that connection. So if you can come in as yourself and show your best self, not what you think we want, but you, that usually works best in my opinion.
I think that's also true in terms of casting, that you have to realize that who you are is what it's about. And to try to be somebody else, or you think what that person wants to see, it doesn't work. You are enough, and that's what we want.
I think it's also helpful for people to really know who they are in terms of where they stand in the business. I think having realistic expectations and more specifically, like where their place is in the marketplace from a business perspective. So having that education of what episodics are shooting in New York, or what procedurals are currently on air, or if someone asks you what you like in terms of taste, be ready to discuss Big Little Lies or Fargo or Chicago Med.
I think it's helpful to keep in mind, this might be a little too granular, but I think it's helpful to keep in mind how much of this sort of screwy process that we do to cast things is out of our control, our control. Particularly if you see a breakdown, and even if you're not represented, most people get access to them, and you see, like, a general rule of thumb for me is that the more names and companies are on the top of the breakdown with the information and producers, generally speaking, the less, the smaller and quieter my voice is in that mass. And so a lot of times when, Jenna or Gabrielle call for feedback, or I don't always really know. I can just say what I thought, and depending on the feature is different. Films are different because we work with a lot of the same directors, so I have some sense of what they like. But generally speaking, it's sort of like I only have my opinion and my best sort of educated guess. outside of that, you know, it's, so all you can really do is come in and fail well. You know, do your best, you get to act the role for 30 seconds or 3 minutes, and you get to play the part, and then you kind of leave. I know we always say, like, just leave and, you know, forget about it, but I don't know what else you can do because there's so little. It's different if you're going in for your friend's theater company or you went to college together, but, you know, you send tapes to LA or links or whatever, and I don't know what happens 90% of the time and who sees them and who makes decisions, and I've been almost 15 years I've been doing this. I really haven't figured out how it, because there really is there's no formula for it, so it's always different.
But if you ju- but if you do your best, what can happen is you may not get that, but even years later, you'll be called and you'll say, "How did you know me?" Well, that was years ago. So that's why I say that you can only do your best and you can only work out of yourself, because you never know.
But now you know why your agents aren't giving you guys feedback, because nobody has it.
And that happens, what Carol said. I've called, and you know, it's honestly the number of auditions that really like blow your mind once, twice, 3 times a month, maybe, you know? So that happens. I call somebody back in months, years later. It just sticks in your head. And you know, I will work on more things later that month, 2 years from now. And so in a lot of ways, your goal is to get the gig when you come in, but in a lot of ways it's to keep coming back.
Making fans, that's really what's important.
To piggyback, also we find with our clients, if you have a life outside of this, that you can leave the audition and not obsess about it for 3 weeks. You know, that's better to share your work, and then maybe you didn't book the job, but you might book the room. You might come back for another audition or get repeat business, as we like to call it.
Well, and there's a lot of focus on being your authentic self. Now, as actors, we're generally playing a role, right? I mean, that's where we're going towards. So, I mean, in order for the work, unless we're just playing ourselves. But even then, you know, that's a type of a role, the way that you're being seen. So when you come in for an agent meeting, or maybe the first time that you're coming in to audition for a casting director, what have you seen with people dealing with nerves and things getting in their way so they can't be themselves? Have you seen, like, what would you say that you've seen that really works, that you feel like, I really saw that person, I really saw what they can bring? What was it about that actor when they came in?
I think Jenna sort of touched on this before, which is we just want to connect with a person. We're sitting in an office all day behind a computer, we're on the phone trying to sell you or a script or whatever it may be. And I think, like, life's too short. We want to work with good people. We want to work with people we believe in and that we want to root for. It's too hard otherwise. And I think that we want your authentic self. Like, we want to have common hobbies and bonds with you. And I think we really need to see that in the room. We don't want a presentation. We want to really know you, because we're going to be in the trenches with you every day.
Especially with agents, at the end of the day, it is just a relationship. So if you come in really anxious and nervous, you know, first of all, we're just people, so no reason to be that nervous. But on top of that, like, maybe you don't want to work with us. We have so many people that come in that are trying to present, like, I need an agent, but we don't gel. So why would you want to work with somebody you don't want to talk to on a daily or weekly basis, you know? So don't just come in with the intention of getting an agent. Come in wanting to have a conversation and see, is this the right agent for me?
I think there's an issue these days that makes it very difficult in terms of casting, and it's one of the reasons why I closed selective casting. Well, it's still open because of Lena, but it was because my whole thing was getting to meet people. And when they started saying that we just want to see the self-made tapes, what? What does that mean? You know, because they're not directed. And there is something about meeting the human being. For me, as a casting director, I loved it. And yeah, and when they took it away from me, I said, to hell with you. And that, and the other thing, quite honestly, was my business, because I cast industrials and educational films, which made nobody famous, but it did terrible things like give a pension, and dare I say, health care. And the end of the business that I chose for that very reason, because it gave me more creative ability with it, you know, because it wasn't commercials where it had to be blonde. Oh, sorry. But it was. We want a judge, and they would say a white guy with white hair, you know, in his 50s. So I would follow that.
Paul Schnee right here.
You're a little young.
Oh, thank you so much.
I know your age. But when I did that, I brought them, how many do you have to see if they're really good actors? 3, right? And then I brought in an older woman who happened to be African American before they asked for diversity. I brought another female. I brought a Hispanic man when they didn't ask for anything like that. I just brought in good actors. I mean, that's why I love casting industrials, because I could do that, which you cannot do in film. Or maybe you can, but but this is, and, I'll just give you the best actors. And it just made me feel so good. And then they picked the African-American woman to be the judge. And they said, Carol, that was interesting. That was great. Sorry, it wasn't the white man with the gray hair in his 50s. So, I feel in myself, I feel a loss of community because I felt a loss of what the business meant. And I feel really, really strong for all of you because it has become a different business. Even for the young people, it's a different business. And it becomes more of a technical business, but you still have these wonderful people who understand it. And I think with an agent, am I right that you actually get to see people?
Yes, we do. It's magical.
Well, and that leads me to the next question, because what I'd love to find out is what are some ways for actors to prepare for a first meeting with an agent? What have you experienced? Oh, someone's calling right now. What have you experienced in the past where you felt, wow, as you were saying earlier, Jenna, about the, do you want to work with us? So what are some things that an actor can do to prepare to really shine in a meeting and that make you feel like they did their research? What are some things like that?
Well, I think there's information on all of us out there, so some research to an extent without it being creepy. About our office, I have a background in stand-up, so when somebody comes in and and then we can talk about the booker at Caroline's and, that kind of thing. It's a connection there, as well as being prepared with knowing what shows film in New York. I hate when someone comes in for a meeting and I always ask what are your favorite shows on television? And it's either shows that ended 5 years ago or film in, Norway. It's like, well, I can't help you there. So I like people that are educated and come prepared with questions, come prepared with a list of casting directors they know, a list of shows they're right for, things they've auditioned for. I like lists. I really like a list.
And can you add to what kind of marketing materials would you like to see when someone comes in, as far as what they have available for you?
I like to have headshots and resumes come in with the meeting, but sometimes they'll bring multiple headshots, whether that's online or in person. Usually if we've set up a meeting, we've gotten an email with their reels or clips ahead of time, so we can take a look at that as an office before we meet together. If you don't have that, we a lot of times request you to put something on tape, like sides after the meeting, so we can get a sense of how you are on screen.
And for you, Gabby?
I would agree with almost all of that, except I would say that I actually don't need a headshot and resume because, like Jenna said, we usually have it. I've usually seen your material already if I'm asking you to come in. I like education. I like lists. I like also for you to have an awareness of our clients. Having seen theater that maybe, inspires you, or, you liked our client in or something along those lines. I think being prepared with questions, I think especially for younger incoming clients, I think it's a good opportunity for them to really learn, and I'm open to sort of that opportunity. So if they have questions about the business or somebody or a casting director or those types of things, I open and want someone prepared with that, because there's nothing worse like being on a blind date where you're like, got nothing to talk about. So yeah, having those sort of talking points if there is sort of room in the air.
And going back to the idea of bringing your authentic self, Paul, for you, when you have an actor come in for the first time, so someone has an agent and they sent them to you for the first time, this whole idea of them letting them see you, letting you see them, when they walk in. So how is that balance for you? Because a lot of times with the films that you work on, they can be something that has, serious, a lot of the films that you've done, awesome films. So what do you find is effective for an actor coming into your office for the first time?
It's all going to be subjective, right, in terms of what people like, I guess. I'm not, since I'm so sparkling up right here, right now, obviously, I'm super introverted and I'm not like a super social person. So I'm not really, I guess, this is a hard question. What I'm always interested in, I'll defend the self-tapes. I'm interested primarily in how and if you'll fit into whatever it is I'm working on. The other stuff is like gravy, It's sort of, it's generally speaking, I'll put it this way, it's immaterial unless it's bad. I'm sort of digressing, but I've almost never gotten a call from a UPM or an AD or something about, oh man, Jenna, she was so awesome on set and she was early to her fitting, and all I hear about is, where was he? He didn't answer his email. His cell phone was off. I couldn't find him. He showed up. He was a dick. Sorry, YouTube. He was a dick to everybody. He was rude to the PAs and all that stuff. And that then makes me go, all right, life's too short. The world is don't underestimate how small the world is, because it's really small. So you're probably not going to come back in. Unless you're Marlon Brando and that good and have earned that level of, behavior, which most people haven't. So I guess my point is, it's like, I like to sort of, you can get a vibe off of somebody. But I'm not 100% sure I'm looking for that. What you just like I'm looking for how you approach the role, what your take is. I'm almost exclusively focused on just where you are in the world of this thing I'm working on, and the other things about like where you might fit in something else, and the other stuff I can generally kind of pick up on, I'd like to think.
I actually don't, like the way we send people into casting, or the way we advise people to go into casting, is go in as the character, don't do it hard, just do your job. And if they want to talk to you afterwards, they ask you questions afterwards, then you can answer them. But don't go in trying to have a conversation. They're busy, they're doing their job. I think spoon feed them what they want to see and call it a day. And I would actually say that, in my opinion, and from what I've heard is, and again, I've never been an actor, and I've never been in these rooms before personally, but we talk to casting directors all day long. New York has warmer rooms. There are more conversations to be had, and LA is much more rushed, and I think that's sort of a culture shock for some people in terms of business. So just having that mentality will make you that much stronger regardless of where you are.
What should we say if there is a scale of this really works and this doesn't work, just to exaggerate for a moment or two? What if, without naming any names, what's happened in your experience with people who have taken it for, just so we know, this is the wrong way to do it? Do you, any war stories you want to share?
Like in a meeting?
Yeah.
Give me a second.
Yeah, there's the list of pet peeves and don'ts is a lot longer than the list of I feel like the do's are kind of obvious. Mm-hmm. The don't, here's what I always, and I'm the exception, I'm not particularly busy most of the time. I tend to schedule I don't like to have people waiting, so even though they usually
Very
talk
well
to each
behaved
other.
in that way.
And my office in LA, where my business partner is, the waiting area is super ice cold, even though they all know each other. And here in New York, it's like people see each other, they go for the same role, and then they go have lunch. But anyway, I have appointments far apart. I don't, I like to take time. But I will always, and all our readers say this, I always say, hi, how are you today? Do you have any questions? I say it every single time someone walks in. By which I generally mean, is there anything in the story, the sides, that you don't understand, or just something, objective, right? And so when someone says, and maybe I'm asking for it because I say, do you have any questions? And so I've had a lot of people say, yeah, well, I'm looking at the sides, and so this Willie Loman, is he sort of down a lot? What does he want? And I think, and I've heard that question too about, this waitress. Is she having a good day? And I was like, well, that's why you're here. I don't know. That's what you should have decided when you were rehearsing. And so it's funny and it's annoying, but it's sort of kind of makes me go right away, all right, that's maybe a little bit of homework wasn't done. And I'm not saying you have to have some, notebook-filled backstory, but just a fundamental take on the character and the story. If you don't know if it's, a lot of times now with this BS where you don't get the whole script and everything's secret and da-da-da, sure, I'm happy to fill in. But the other thing too is that, I was like, oh, do you have any questions? Yeah, well, and you're a 6 foot tall Asian guy. Well, it said, 10-year-old African-American girl, and that's not me, but I guess I'll give it a shot. And I'm like, I know you're not that. You're always there. You're always there on purpose. So you don't need to tell me that you're not what the breakdown said, because Carol said, something changed overnight. They're like, let's start seeing Asian guys or whatever. So you don't have to. What was another thing? Oh, you don't apologize. I just got these sides. That makes me nuts. Even if it's true, right? And you don't have time, then call whomever. Call me if you're coming in directly, and just say I need another day. And if I say, you really should do it today because it's going to go fast, then do your best. But I feel like you're apologizing ahead of time for something you haven't done wrong yet, but then you might not. So it's sort of I know you're trying to be polite, and maybe it's true that you just got them, but maybe you'll nail it, and then you'll say, oh, holy shit, I just got these sides. And I'll go, no way, right? And so then but don't say it beforehand, because you're sending a signal that you're going to suck. And this is why you're going to suck. So it's just one of those things that just makes me crazy.
Also, yeah, I don't, after an audition, comment on your audition. There are people, and they'll do something, and gee, that was really good. No, it wasn't. Can I do it again? It wasn't. I guess it wasn't. Or they'll walk afterwards. They won't say thank you. They'll just walk off. berating themselves, and you feel so sorry, you know? I'm so sorry. So, anyway, maybe I'll go into stand-up, you know? Maybe that'll be my next...
I'd love to be your coach.
Jenna, did you come up with something?
Yeah, I came up
All
with a
right,
couple.
Share it with us, please.
While I said I want a connection with potential clients, I also want you to remember this is still a business. So when people treat our meetings as a therapy session, that is hard. I don't need to hear a poem about your divorce. That has happened. Yes. I don't need to, hear about a surgery in great detail and then be offered pictures. I don't really need that. The other pet peeve I have is a whole meeting. We could have like 15-minute, half-hour meeting, whatever, and you haven't asked me one question about me. It's all about, how do you see me? What shows would I be right for? How many auditions would you get me a week?
What would you want to hear? What was the question you would want to, like?
Any type
your
of,
day, or-
no, just like what shows, when I ask you, what shows do you like? You could ask me.
How about you? What do you-
Or, what's your background? What's your background? Like a conversation
Oh, wow. You should
where
have a
two
brick-
people
you should have
are
a
in the
brick wall.
room. Yeah,
the
an
issue.
acknowledgement that I am also there. That would be nice.
I think you also, need to have some degree of, like I said before, how you're there on purpose. If you're not the,
I love
what
that.
was
Can
on
we
the
just
breaks?
pause for just 1 second?
Yeah.
I love it so much. You are there on purpose.
well, I called you in, so
I love that.
if you're not what the breakdown says, it's like, you're standing right in front of me and I can see, and B, that I know. But also, it's the can I do it again thing. That's really, to the extent that I have, any human feelings whatsoever. I always say to actors too. I would say, I would tell you if I really, and if I'm feeling generous, if it's like a chill day, whatever, I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it again. And sometimes it's like, okay, what did I miss? Because it was exactly the same as before. And I don't, it's just sort of like trust the person who knows the material and knows to some, extent what they are looking for. That I always, if there's something wrong, sometimes I'll get on some of these indie films, I do like super long scenes, and it's hard to like stay with it as the actor. The camera's only on you, and we're not cutting to the other person. And I get it; it's really hard. So sometimes I'll say, let's try it again, pick up from this place, and because I don't want that little glitch, whatever it is, to screw up the other very nice 4 minutes of your audition. However, if I say, no, don't worry about it. I got it. It's good. Just, either you're wrong for the role, not through any fault of your own, or it was fine. You may do one take and just nail it, and that's that. You don't have to. And it's hard. I know it's hard not to like stew over it and think, oh, you only let me do it once, But it doesn't mean it. You should also, in terms of homework. I don't know if the agents, I don't really know, but I think you can, through friends or you go in for different casting offices, you kind of get a sense of like what people are like. My office is super empty. You go to Telsey, there's like a gazillion people walking around and it's loud. So you just kind of get a sense of the vibe of different offices, because there's not that many of us. I only mean that, sorry, as a way to like psychologically, if you hear that, Avi couldn't come, so we'll use her. If you've heard that it's Avi, just to pick a name, unless she says do it again, if she says do it once, that's it, you're screwed. Maybe that's true, I don't know. But I'm telling you, for me, it's not. So you have the homework for my office.
And some of that too kind of goes back into trust, because like you said, you're here on purpose. And you were saying, Carol, that if you end up evaluating your performance in a negative way, then after you do your take, and you say to them, "What the heck?" "Oh, that is terrible." So there's some. It's so hard, I think, to keep the mindset going, of really trusting yourself, being willing to present yourself in an authentic way, but also in an appropriate way in these different circumstances. And I'm so glad you shared with us how interesting people can be in a meeting. We know that that's not the way we want to go.
Well, I just want to add on that you're here on purpose thing. A lot of times I'll send an appointment and someone will say, "I'm wrong for this." And it's like, I thought you were right for it because I submitted you. Paul thought you were right for it because he's calling you in. So 2 out of 3 people think you're right for it.
But you don't, so
So-
maybe you're not.
Well, unless it's like, oh, they're looking for someone that juggles swords, and hey, I can't juggle swords. Okay. But, I mean, unless it's so out there, I think for the most part, give it a shot. Try to find your way through the material. And maybe you're not right for it, but I think you were there on purpose, right? That's my point of view.
Awesome. Gabby, do you have any war stories or things you don't care for?
A question I ask frequently is, as a fan, somebody who's looking to get into this business, where they see themselves, whose career they would either emulate or they appreciate their choices and work. And I always find it to be hilarious that some people's responses are ridiculous. I think that this goes back to sort of knowing your place, knowing who you are as an actor, knowing where your place is in the business, but also being realistic with yourselves. And I do believe people should shoot for the stars and set goals for themselves, and I believe in all of that. But, when you hear Leonardo DiCaprio and you're not anywhere near Leonardo DiCaprio, or you've never seen What's Eating Gilbert Grape, that's a problem. So, those are things that drive me insane. I think also coming in as an actor and then sitting there telling me all about your music is a problem. I've had that recently.
You'll never be available because you'll be touring.
I also am going to school to be a neuroscientist, and I'm like, okay, you should focus on that because that sounds important. So those are some, grapes from my pile.
And there's also, I think, because we're in SAG-AFTRA, but there's also equity. There is also another way to perform. And I think for each area, it requires different things. Film is different than television, is different than the stage. Certainly what I cast was different and required different kinds of talent and understanding. So it's important to know that there's not one answer. You have to be aware of what it is that you're going to be. What is a medium? So I think that that's very important. And the other thing, and this is something I feel so strongly about, I love actors. I love their passion. I know that Noel Coward, for those of you who remember Noel Coward? Somebody said to him, "Sir Noel, what do you say to a star?" And he said, "Twinkle." There's a difference between wanting to be a celebrity and famous, which is what this world seems to be thinking success, than to really have a passion to do the work.
And just to pick up on knowing the medium part, when you come in, everything I do is taped. I've gotten to the point now where, you come in and you're, 10 feet away from me in the room, and the monitor's over here. I always watch the monitor because that's, the thing with crappy lighting and everything that I'm sending on for someone to judge whether you should come back for him or her. So tape yourselves, know, another thing you can sort of know, and maybe like in a notebook kind of way about different offices is what kind of frame people use. I'm always head and shoulders, sometimes just face, like pretty tight. One of the reasons for that is that not everyone, some directors are looking at auditions on their phone, and you don't want to be like way back there and you can't see your face. I also look for lots of just facial reactions and how you're thinking. And also going back to what I said before, how it's all on you, which I'm sure is nerve-wracking. And I've deliberately, probably sadistically, I'll often choose scenes where you don't have the majority of the dialogue, right? Like you're listening to your wife telling you she's leaving you or something. And just to see what happens. It's interesting for directors to watch. But just put yourself on tape, go to your agency, go to a friend's house, do it just so you can get used to that thing. And if you're primarily stage trained or oriented and you haven't gone on camera a lot, get rid of the nerves that almost automatically come with, and then look at it. See what you're like in the frame. Are you shiny? When I'm on camera, my eyes pop out. I don't know why. And so if I ever, went on Phil Donahue, Phil Donahue, there's some, I like this, but you just know what that thing is so that you don't have to, worry about it in the moment. You can just act and just do the scene. And just know, a reader's going to be on the other side, and you're not going to, generally speaking, my audition room is really small. You're not going to get to run around like if you're auditioning for an action scene or it's raining or something. The other thing to remember too is that what I do in the audition room that's not the movie, right? It's something else. So that recreating, in a very general way, sure. If you feel more like a lawyer, whatever, with a suit and with a tie on, then do it. I've never heard a director say, "That guy sucks, but he had a tie on, so I'm going to cast him." The other guy came in a t-shirt. Whatever makes you feel more like the role, go for it. But things that are, this is why I say tape what ahead of time and just see. Can you have a friend watch it? Can you follow the conversation? Can you follow the story? Does it really matter if you're holding a newspaper over your head because it's raining? Probably not. Unless there's a line in this scene that's like, "This newspaper sure helps keep the rain off my face." Then sure. But most of the time, you'll be surprised. A lot of that stuff can kind of go. Don't get too hung up on it because it's not going to. What I'm looking for anyway is just telling the story and connecting with the role, and that's really it.
And if you're not comfortable with on-camera stuff, there are lots of people who teach it well in New York. Bob Krakauer has a class. A lot of casting associates do go through one-on-one. Like there are services out there to really help people.
Just to touch on very quickly about once someone's had a meeting or they have been in your office for an audition, dealing with not being available, how best to do that as far as booking out or having other conflicts that come up?
We ask our clients to let us know at least 2 weeks in advance that you're going to go out of town. There was one year everyone went on a surprise vacation, and one, I don't believe it, and two, I need new friends because no one takes me on a surprise. So getting that ahead of time is really helpful and detailed, like, are you going out of town like to, Mexico, or are you going to Connecticut? Like, where are you? Can you come back? Are you taking a camera? Take a camera. Because we've had people tape in, like, Indonesia and send a tape, on their honeymoon. Sorry. So, unless we're told I'm going to a silent retreat and there's no way I am checking my phone, I'm going to still try.
Yeah, I think we get that you guys have a life, that you need a life. We want you to have a life. But I think at the same time, we show up every day. We're picking up the phone for you every day. We're submitting you. And I think we want to know that you're available. We want to know that your dedication is to the craft and we're doing the work as well. And we can't want it as much as you do. And you can't want it more than you, I should say. And if you're booking out and going on vacation, not bringing your phone or your something to tape with, or you're just like, there's just so much material and I just can't do it this weekend. Like, nobody wants to hear that, because like I showed up for work today, so I expect you to. And that is, I think, a huge turnoff when working with somebody, regardless of how talented they are.
And I think in terms of casting, you usually, not so much in film because that changes a lot, I think, but you know when they're shooting. And if you're not going to be in town, don't go in for the audition. Because if you go in and if the director wants you and all of a sudden you're not available, who does it fall on? The casting director.
Well, it falls on the agent. I'm sure you hate it as much as I do. When I think you'd want to keep your agent and manager up to date on, no matter how insignificant it might seem, tell them. Because I've said, I call Gabby or Jenna, I'm like, so-and-so's got the job, this has to be, she works these 4 days. And then, I just called her. It turns out, we didn't know, she's got her cousin's graduation. She absolutely can't miss it. Tell Gabby and Jenna that you can't miss your cousin's graduation. So then,
Yeah, because I think what you guys don't know is if you're in the mix for the job, we're usually not really telling you until we have the offer, because there's pins are ridiculous. They don't exist in my mind, so they're not real. And sorry, you guys are always pinning people. So they're they. So they check your avail. They check it 3 times, and we're like, yeah, they're still available. They're still available. We haven't heard otherwise, so we just assume you're still available. There's nothing worse than I have to call Paul after he sent me the offer to be like, just kidding.
She's a surprise autopsy. She's going to
Yeah.
And especially with film, we have outside dates that are like 9 months. Like, are they available for 9 months? I don't know. But that's why we need you to be telling us, even if you're not held for something, because these things turn around so quickly. We've had people have an audition on a Monday, a call back on a Tuesday, and be on a plane to Atlanta on Wednesday or Tuesday night. So if you have something going on that you can't get out of or not willing to get out of, we have to know about it. And I need to be told this is something I will not get out of, because I sometimes say, this is the job to move out of your apartment for, to leave your boyfriend for. This is a job. Miss your aunt's birthday. You'll be fine. So that kind of thing, what are your boundaries? What's the line? What's the thing you cannot miss? Because I can respect that, but you got to keep us in the loop. We call ourselves at our office your sister wives. We're your other spouse, so we really need to know as much as possible.
And I also observe that everything now is so fast. I mean, so fast. You have an audition in an hour. What? But because of all of the self-taping and voice recording, particularly voiceovers, that you find yourself in Bloomingdale's. I know this. A friend of mine was telling me she got this call to do it immediately, and there she was trying to find clothes to hide so she could muff the sound. I mean, in a way, things have become better, maybe, but because it's so fast, when it used to be a casting, you went there. But now you're in Bloomingdale's and you're behind a lot of clothes to muffle the sound to send in the tape because they need it now. It's the now. And you just have to get used to it. You just have to say, this is the new world.
And
yeah.
With the new world, I think there's a common misconception. I'm kind of steering the conversation in a slightly different way, which is that there's more opportunities out there. I think that's a false misrepresentation of the business currently, because I think even though there's more ways to watch TV and there's different platforms and things of that nature, I think there used to be a world in which there were certain people who did TV and certain people who did voiceovers and certain people who did, these commercials and film. And those lines are so blurred now that it's sort of open season always. So I think that the more opportunities, but those people who were only doing one thing are now doing 6. So now the movie stars have TV shows that are also doing the insurance commercials, that are also reading books, that are also, doing planetarium voiceovers. Like, it's truly insane. So I think, we're working hard, we're trying to get your jobs, but we need you to be as flexible as that you humanly could be. If you need to be in Bloomingdale's, be in Bloomingdale's. If you need to be in an appointment next day, we'll try to do what we can to get you more time with the material, but there really just isn't more time sometimes. Really, Paul gets a call and is like, I need this role cast. Send options by 6 p.m. That's all we have. And we're just all doing our best.
And with the self-taping that is happening a lot, while yes, that is an option, we get a lot of calls after we get an appointment, an in-person appointment, and clients will say, "Can I just tape?" No.
I mean, they're in New York.
Yeah, they're in New York. They just don't want to move their, lunch date. I don't know. So you're missing this opportunity to connect that we, at the end of the day, want, and I think as a society need more, not to get on, but so take that opportunity. If you can, go, because again, yes, you can do a wonderful self-tape, but there's nothing like that in the room connection, getting to get to know these people, and that's more likely to be brought back.
My understanding that this whole panel developed because of the Open Door, and that in Open Door, actors come in and meet agents and meet casting directors. And because of how the business has changed, people had a hard time meeting people face to face and didn't know what to say and didn't know, because you can't meet someone and just film it in when it comes to meeting somebody. Meet, see. And so it was a strange experience for a lot of certainly new actors to be put in this position of actually in the flesh, no camera, talking to someone in the business. Now, they all bite. So the key is to bring red meat and kale, 'cause some may be vegans, but they're human beings just like you. And many times the truth is, and I've said this to actors because I know the feeling, that the person meeting you is as nervous as you are. As nervous, think of it that way. So that it's really a question of they're not judging you, they're meeting you. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to, what I said earlier, be you.
In defense of the self-tape, sometimes I work on a lot. Sorry, don't not self-tape because you can't get in. I'll put it that way. I work on a lot of films with directors who are friends of mine, or I help sometimes develop scripts with it, and they take years and they don't have money. And I just say, I can't take 4 days out of my life because I'm doing this other job to have 20 people come in. So, it gives Gabby and Jenna a chance to put people I've never met before on tape. Who would really like this script? Blah, blah, blah. And then, it's better than nothing. It's not great, no, but it's better than nothing. And it does give them a way to, I won't say slip somebody in, because that's not the right way to put it, but sort of present somebody who otherwise might not. Sometimes on small movies, if I'm working on a $500,000 movie, I'll just bring people right in for the director. I won't even do readings by myself first. because the budget's too low, I'm not making enough, it's, sometimes the director will be like, yeah, I trust you, bring in 10 people for that, and they'll just come straight in. And so if I've seen a self-tape from something else, that's why I said before, like, you want to sort of, it's like a bank, you want to like just deposit in this bank of auditions, always like a good deposit, I guess. Good, because also when I'm working with a director now on something that's going to be sort of an improvised movie, and she's not sure how she wants to write it, but wants to maybe find a group of actors who will workshop it with her. So I got 15 years worth of auditions in the cloud, and maybe it's not my property to do. I don't really know if it belongs to the production, but I'm pulling auditions from years. You might like this guy, and you have no idea, it's not you, but you have no idea that I'm showing this director an audition from 3 years ago. So just come in, put one down that you're happy with and that shows you and you can act. And because some directors will be like, it doesn't matter what it's from. I'll watch I did the first season of Jessica Jones, which is a completely alien sort of subject matter for some of the like social realism films that I do, like with Deborah Granick or whomever. And that it's better than nothing. It's something for someone like her just to look at. So you never know where that audition's going to end up.
Yeah, and what I like about self-tapes, just obviously if you can get an appointment, go in. But the great thing about self-tapes, and I think like we don't want them, this is the way the business is going, so we're just going to accept it. We're going to try to do it as well as we possibly can. But know that with the self-tape, you're controlling the process, which is really amazing because nobody else has control of this process. And this is probably the only time you're gonna be able to control the process. So take advantage of it, do as many takes as you need for you to feel like that's the best sort of version of yourself that you want out there. Because like Paul said, he's gonna pull from it later in years, but I think really make sure those tapes are as, anybody could see those tapes. You won't be embarrassed when they appear on, Deadline 10 years later when they're like reminiscing about the movie and how great it was and all the amazing actors that auditioned for it. I think that's the way you look at these tapes. Like that's the best version of your work right now, and you're leaving it all out there.
I would argue that when you do come in, that's also the only part you control, is what you do in the scene on camera. You can't control, like I said at the very, very beginning, all the gazillion people who look at it, and maybe an assistant in LA looks at it and doesn't even show it to his boss or whatever. But what you can control, the only thing you control is what you do. Whether it's, for me, you can't control, sure, if I only show one take out of 6, or if I'm like, not so much. Yeah, I got that. But what you put down, you have complete control of that,
I was thinking that something that's really important, and I know when my business was going this way and they didn't want casting and so forth, but they still wanted union, a good website and having good stuff that you've done on the website had been helpful, because it wasn't a question of self-taping, it was a question of seeing these people and hearing them, and really having good website with material that you hopefully really have done and that you're proud of is very important.
I think it's extremely important. If you have a link on your resume, because I hate paper, so I have almost no paper in my life. Everything I do is electronic. So if I'm gonna get your resume in a PDF and it has a clickable link, make sure it's up to date. Make sure it has reviews if you've done theater or a film, whatever. And like any, the other Bob Cracker always says, the audition is a job interview and a blind date. So what you would not want your potential blind date or employer to know about you from Facebook or Instagram. I've had directors come in and for callbacks, and they've said, unbeknownst to me, I looked at your Instagram, and for good, I don't know what for good or bad, but you're still gonna try to get a job and hang out with this filmmaker for at least a day. So take off the the keg stand videos from does everyone know what a keg stand is? Sorry. From whatever where your college days and you're doing beer bongs. That's awesome, but you just never ever know. Like Carol, when we were sitting down, she's sort of, we've never met, so she looked up my website, and maybe you guys looked. It's just just be just be aware of that kind of stuff.
I think that is awesome advice. Everything you all have shared with us so far. We have a little bit of time left. I want to get to a couple of the questions that people were able to write in when they came in here. Irina is wondering, do you have any advice for child actors that left the business and are now trying to get back in?
Don't bring your mother.
Excellent. Kaylin is wondering, do you think it's good to have an agent who works in one field of performing, or theater, film, and commercial? So I guess somebody who, I guess that could be an office too. Anyone want to take that?
We're a legit only office, so we don't cover commercials or voiceovers unless they come out over the general breakdowns. So I think it's fine to have, your legit office and your commercial office, but if you just have an agent that only does theater and they're in New York, like the TV and film boom has really taken off here, so to not have someone wanting to capitalize on that doesn't really make sense to me. So I would say look for somebody that does at least TV, film, and theater. If you can get it all under one roof, wonderful. That's my take on it.
Great. Marianne asks, what do you like to read in a follow-up note? Paul, who likes no paper.
You like a follow-up note, doesn't
Yeah,
Right.
I was
I
just
mean,
gonna say, do I want to?
follow-
Do I want to
that's
read
a
a
good,
follow-up?
No, that's actually
No.
a good question. And for me, I mean, my comment to actors with my general rule, I suppose, with mail, whether it's electronic or hard copy, please don't buy disdain for paper, is send whatever you want as long as you're okay with it being thrown out and not looked at, not in a mean way. What I follow up, I like a follow-up note that has a picture on it, because I don't remember names super well. So like, it was great to meet you. Thanks, Stephanie is like, I don't know who are you? Yeah, and also I like, it's nice when people send that. It was nice to finally to meet you, whatever. But any kind of mail that has a purpose, and by that I mean, I'm going to be on blah blah on next week, maybe, and then put that clip on your website, because I'm probably not, I'm going to be at so and so at Goodspeed. If you can come up, let me know. I'll get to whatever just make sure it's has a point. Unless we've had a conversation about your headshots, here are my new headshots doesn't mean anything to me, because I've met with people. I'm like, send me your contact sheet, and I'm sort of generous that way sometimes. But if we haven't had that conversation, then, or like an update. General updates don't really, if they include, again, like a booking or something that you're, having been called back for something, pinned for something. Yeah, I hate to. I don't mean to like crush the, a positive thing happening, but it's sort of like, I don't know. What am I going to do with that?
Yeah, I think a follow-up, a thank you, I think that's really nice. If we're requesting additional materials, or if we asked you to make a self-tape, things of that nature, but I don't need to know, you've walked the dog this week, or the reality is like, even if I had, we just don't have the time. It's truly, like, we don't have the time. We read it, it goes in, and it's just a waste, and I would hate that that's where you're investing your energy, because I think that's where the
A
problem
better note
lies.
than I'm going to be on so-and-so next week is, here's my clip from so-and-so a couple months ago. And you can click on it right there and I can watch it.
I have some things not to do when you send follow-up. Just send, if you're going to do snail mail, just send it in a normal envelope. Don't pay for FedEx Express or that kind of thing. Don't put confetti or glitter or anything like that in the envelope. You don't have to have a gimmick. Like, someone just sent me a Starbucks gift card, which was nice, but like, don't spend the money. I'm not going to go, well, he did buy me a Starbucks gift card. I need to bring him in.
I think also a good thing is when you've met someone, you might ask them, how do you like me to stay in touch, because some people don't want it, but some people say, send me a postcard, you know, every 2 months or something. At least you've heard it from them. And each person is an individual and has different needs. So,
The same as Paul was saying for the rooms here in New York, to keep track of, you know, what is the frame that they use? Or do they like to talk ahead of time? Or just things like that, or maybe even the directions of the best way to get there on the train, so that for the next time that you're going into the office, you're already ready.
Yeah, I know how people like to get, if I said, you know, mail me anything, that means one. That doesn't mean one for me and Rachel and Carrie, who's mostly in LA, and Roya, who's in LA, because I know you get those labels. I get, still to this day, just send one. If, you know, at Bernie's office, there's 15 casting directors there. Maybe they have their own mail thing. Then you send 15. I'm not saying to do that, but just learn how each office works, make a note of it, and I mean, look, I don't disqualify anybody for sending 4 postcards, but I kind of think it's sort of sad.
Well, is
Just
there,
in terms of a waste of money, it's all right.
so we're going to have to close, just because, you know, it's time to do the next thing. We could talk all day, absolutely. Is there anything, any closing words of advice that you'd like to give our wonderful actors here tonight?
Something I always tell people, whether they're a potential client or actually a new person starting out, or, you know, just in general in the business, where I think, you know, you kind of will cover everything. Carry a notebook with you, write notes right after, whether, you know, how the room felt, what directions you were given, what you think you did well. As an agent, we'll ask for that just as much as you ask for feedback. We want to hear how you think you did. That way you could always refer to it. The last time I saw this person, I read for this, and this is how it was, and this is how he might start to see me, and this is sort of, you know, I think it just will help growth. It'll also help you personally to prepare mentally each time you go into auditions. I think also when you meet an agent or a manager or something, writing down those types of notes. I saw this at this point, or I ran into them at the theater. Just sort of start journaling. I think it will help, whether it be of real substance with real material, or just like how you're feeling that day, or I don't think it did well. I did well because I had tea before and that caffeine really hit me. I think those will really help, and I think that's the best advice from a business perspective I could give.
Great. Anyone else?
2 little things. Just when you're going in for a meeting with, I think, anyone, be aware of like scents and odors and, you know, that kind of thing when you walk into a room. Judy is very sensitive to perfumes a lot of times, so that's something. And I know in some casting appointments we get a note about that. The other thing is enjoy yourself. Like, if you're not enjoying this, I mean, that's why you got into this, right? I think at some level. So if that goes away at any point, I mean, that's why I stopped doing stand-up and I stopped being an actress, because it stopped being fun. So then I found something else that I enjoyed just as much, if not more. So if it stops being fun, or like enjoyable, maybe it's time to move on.
There are easier things to do and more money to be made.
Yeah.
I promise you.
and I will echo that, because I acted for a number of years, and I remember the last show I did, and it was really fun and enjoyable, and I took my bow and said, I'm glad this is over. And it was, and I think a lot of why I did things now, looking back, was because it was always expected of me. Because when I grow up, I'm going to be an actress, and I did all the things, and it all happened, and then I remember taking a bow on a Broadway stage and saying, is this all there is? And I'll tell you, I love the casting, and I love the people.
Well, we so appreciate you taking the time tonight. It's so insightful. And also, I want to say thank you so much for the questions that you sent in. Some of them I felt like we already were able to answer through the discussion that we had. I hope that you'll be able to attend other SAG-AFTRA events. Thank you, Melissa, for putting this all together. We really appreciate it. Have a great night.